A Muslim in America. Introduction. What should we call the book? A Muslim in America. What is the author's name? Unknown. 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 Are you willing to read a book that would make you question moral principles? Patience. I was editing the book. I'm still hesitant to publish it. I like the cover picture though. It's a helmet with Quranic inscriptions. The first we notice is Ayat al-Kursi inscribed around the helmet. It is used by the Muslim warrior for protection. Above the helmet is raised a Bismillah, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, which is traditionally recited before beginning something, like starting to eat food or starting a day. The warrior is essentially wearing it as though they are saying, I begin my fight in the cause of Allah. The title, A Muslim in America, all black with the exception of the word Muslim, for Islam is the light which carried all civilizations to prosperity. The rest of the title is all black with a glow of light around it. It can be seen as capitalism, the dark, on top of the light below it. How oppressive regimes and racist extremism pushes itself on top of the bright-minded, who are squashed by the heaviness of those above them. None of the words A, in, or America are bright-colored. Instead, they are dark, because they push down their ideologies and sectarianism on others, attempting to form individuals into one single community, aiming to uphold the dark rather than alter it into the bright white. Thank God for dreams, I say. It might be just a collection of my journal entries. They will suffice, I say. But, I continue, at least it would state the truth. God says in the Quran, He is God, there is no God but Him, and Allah is one. Allahu Ahad. La ilaha illallah. Moses says in the Bible, Hear, O Israel, your Lord God is one. Therefore, if you have beliefs that are contrary to that, read on. God says in the Quran, we make our messages clear to those who take heed of us. I'm not sure how patient I will be with this file. I know that it is a good practice to write things down. Thoughts, ideas, journal entries, things that I miss, things that I'm grateful for, things that I believe. I like playing video games though. I find joy in playing. It does not bring too much happiness, I think, but enough to keep my mind occupied. Patience with solitude. With the connectedness of the world through social media platforms, I feel like I am disconnected. Ever since social media's purpose in life was changed to showing atrocities of the abusive regimes like the Syrian regime, where whenever we read some new post, it tallies up the number of deaths in Syria. Or when a close friend posts about the loss of a dear friend or close relative, I feel a specific type of sorrow. It is hard to pinpoint which type it is. I feel mournful. Therefore, I used to occupy my mind with video games, a way of escaping. 2 days later, my wife and I will move to a different apartment. I think I should pack. I used to go to a therapist, but I stopped, although sometimes speaking makes one feel better. I find it to be a double-edged sword. I might visit him this weekend. About a week ago, an earthquake hit Turkey and Syria, and many people were martyred. And I feel like I have done nothing to help those people. I'm living far away from my family. studying at university for my BA, bachelor's. When moving from the situation of being a full-time employee to a full-time student, I felt like I had left a huge part of my life behind, like I was dedicated to my work, whatever it may have been at the time, and by shifting my focus towards studying, I instead started struggling. How does studying solve the issues of human rights? I left my job to seek education in a country that is considered by most of my friends to be the cause of many world catastrophes. It was not just me who thinks this way, it is many people who lived in Syria. I find it very awkward that I fear writing against the US. I believe that the people of the US are not the US. When writing against a government, one does not attack its citizens but its political agendas. The United States persecuted many people and waged wars against other nations, but at the same time they provided humanitarian supports to the conflict areas. Now, the money that they delivered in humanitarian aid is not the money from the government, but rather could be the tax money of US citizens, money fundraised by the humanitarian organizations or even donated by major stakeholders. Therefore, in all honesty, I cannot consider them to be helping because they want to help. Money, in all instances, is just an accumulation of wealth that topples the scales of power for nations. It is a resource that does not do good or bad on its own. However, when finding people in need of money, it gives the wealthy the advantage against the poor. What if the US was the most economically thriving nation? Some of its citizens, similar to the case everywhere around the world, are homeless. So, what does money really do? It is only useful to buy these huge 10-story screens they use in Times Square to keep tourism active. When walking through New York, it is very unbelievable how many homeless people there are in the city. It is, however, curious that the citizens here love the government. Ever since the Declaration of Independence, which stated that all men are created equal, people's protests were limited to racial struggles. It might be difficult for me to even understand the US as a citizen would. I find myself often silent in classes, unable to say or add anything to the discussion about the US. I even dropped a class that was supposed to be discussing US economy and capitalism. Yet it is hard to shrug the idea of the political influence of money or even the use of money in ways that do not provide support to other people. Yes, to be honest, I think that money put to good use is money spent helping other people who need it. What is the use of hoarding money when it is all gone in the end when we are all dead? What prosperity could money bring us after we are dead? Some people say to spend your money on your children, live a happy life with your wife, only acquire money to spend the money. But it is difficult to think that everyone can do this. You cannot spend money you freeze in buying assets. The screen is an asset that is bought by a specific company or a specific entity, whose only function is to show advertisements on or to boast about the company's wealth and technology. Times Square itself, the landmark that is known by a lot of people, is nothing more than an additional asset. Yet, although it is not owned by anyone, it's a tourist attraction that works towards the prosperity of New York, nothing more. Making it look awesome only shows wealth by accumulating wealth and highlighting it to tourists. While it is not anyone's duty to criticize a community or a nation's use of its wealth in whichever way they see fit, I cannot help but question the morality of these actions. Is it moral to buy a $100,000 screen, hang it on a building in the middle of a street to use to sell more products to people? Or is it only immoral to view this as a bad way of seeing the world around us? Is it moral for a community to leave its citizens sleeping on the street when it could easily pay every one of them a monthly wage equivalent to a retirement plan? I get annoyed, I honestly do, when I hear of people sleeping inside subway stations or in parks when the government can easily provide them shelter. At the same time, similarly to the situation of an earthquake, I feel helpless. Does this world need more students who would write books about topics that could result in controversies, or more social workers who would attempt to alleviate the suffering of others? I asked myself a similar question when I started working. I wanted to criticize the educational system back then because we were able to get knowledge from the internet anytime we wanted, or from books if we have a specific topic covered in them. Back then, I wanted to work and had the humanitarian work as one of the only sectors I would want to work in. I felt agitated when hearing stories about human rights violations and the shortages of humanitarian support activists. I felt agitated and thought I could make a change in a world by being transparent. Yet, there are too many things that I still do not know or understand about the world we live in. I do not claim to know a lot, nor is this an attempt to teach people something useful, but rather my own attempt of speaking in the form of writing. I read in one of my classes an interesting way that a writer introduced their book to their readers. The author wrote, "I am the matter of my book," stating that the book will revolve around their life specifically. Me, I do not think that I am the matter of this piece. Unknown.